good person who's worthy of re-election. Getting elected isn't everything, it's only half of the battle. We want to make sure above all else that we're putting people in there who know what they're doing, who are competent Democrats. So make sure that you're learning a lot about these issues, and then as a bonus, establish thought leadership in your fields. If you are running on an environmental platform, make sure that you are someone who's writing op-eds to all the different newspapers in your community or on different blogs or things like that, where you are talking about the issues from a level of expertise. That's going to help you really establish credibility as an expert in those fields with voters. And when newspapers are doing endorsements and those kinds of things, that's what they're oftentimes looking for.
Let me just ask you, when you do that, thought leadership, which I've done, what happens when you're going against like 3 other Democrats and you're voicing your ideas and goals?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you kind of like giving away your platform?
If it's your name that's in that newspaper article as providing that thought leadership, they see that you are the one who is coming out there and stepping up with ideas and creative solutions. And if you're coming up with those sorts of things, and you have an op-ed that's published, for example, on one particular topic, it's not likely that the newspaper is going to publish another op-ed later on the same topic by someone who's just going to regurgitate your facts. There's no interest in them in doing that. So there's a lot of interest in you getting out in front of those sorts of issues. And by establishing yourself as a thought leader, the voters who don't vote for parties, which is rare, but there are still some of those that exist, they're going to gravitate towards people like you who do that.
Just a small comment. I noticed one of the things that you recommend up there is St. Peter's blog, and I had recent experience where the coverage in St. Peter's blog was really very poor on a local issue.
Yeah.
In fact, it was a misrepresentation. It was,
Yeah.
and the issue, it was an environmental issue down here.
Yeah. Especially with blogs, the quality is normally pretty good, but occasionally there are issues with being able to have sufficient reporting and being able to be accurate on everything. And so, regardless of that, though, it's good to be reading these sorts of things so you have your fingers on the pulse of what's happening in the community.
Especially if it is inaccurate.
Yeah.
Especially if it is inaccurate. So then that way, I correct,
So you were in the media.
Well, actually, I know exactly what he was talking about because we were both writing about it. Isn't St. Peter's blog an influence? Peter's, what's his name? Scorchi?
Yeah.
He writes both of those.
Right.
So there are some people that have just general issues with him, period, end of story.
Yes.
But
So these are just examples of the kinds of items that are out there. If you're not aware of them, become familiar with them and read from these sources and read from other ones. In general, just read things and become knowledgeable about the issues.
I think you find if you read, you'll see certain things. Like, it's really interesting. There's a person out there who runs a PR firm, and she works for the Everglades Foundation, and she also works for Big Sugar. So we have one subject that we're working on all year, and we have one spokesman that owns probably like the biggest PR firm in Tallahassee, speaking for both sides. So you guys will learn a lot because you'll read and you'll see all these names and you'll go, oh my God, what is this person doing? And so you get to know who really the players are.
It's going to make you a savvier candidate and elected official.
Yeah.
So we also want you to show up. We've talked about this already, but if you're running for a city council seat, you should attend city council meetings before you are running, and especially while you are running. It amazes me how many people have never been to a meeting before for the office that they're running for. And some voters pick up on that. Key decision makers and social influencers, community leaders pick up on that. So make sure you're showing up.
I also think that, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I also think there's a lot to be said for that once you are in the political sphere, regardless of what your particular track is, everyone sees you as a person who knows about everything.
Yes.
So it's good to be up on everything because you're constantly being asked about things that have nothing to do with your specialty, but if you're able to answer them or speak at least intelligently about them, know what they're talking about and know a little bit about it, it goes a long way to your credibility, whether it has anything to
Absolutely.
do with you or not.
Yeah.
I mean, just being able to, you know, I get that all the time. People don't wanna talk about property taxes, but they wanna talk about what the city government did last week. And so I need to know what they did,
Yeah.
so I can go, oh yes, blah, 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 you know. And then they go, oh, that Dorothy, she's so smart, you know. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Was there any question?
So I mean,
And that's
it's
all
huge.
credibility.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
huge that that you keep your scope really wide and keep, you know, up on things all the time, yeah.
And now is the time for you to be doing that, not when you're running and not like during get out the vote time or anything like that. You need to be doing that now. And especially too, when we talk about showing up, be a keynote speaker at these different events. You know, be the speaker at their banquet or their annual luncheon or whatever, these different organizations. If no one approaches you to do that, you know, you might notice during the meetings that you attend that they're looking for a speaker. Go up to their leadership, go up to the leadership of the organization afterward and volunteer yourself. Say, I would love to do this.
Yeah, if you know something where there's a lot, I agree with somebody, like, have no shame in going up to the person running the meeting, ask if you could briefly introduce yourself and just say, you know, come see me after if you want to get to know the person.
Yeah.
Or, you know, give me, you know, because I think that's extremely important to get in front, get your name there.
Alright, and lastly, a little bit on branding. You could talk forever about branding, but I'm going to boil it down to just the most essential elements when you're starting to build your campaign and your credibility. Have a professional looking social media presence. You know, avoid crude language and pictures. You know, especially, you know, on Facebook. You won't see it as much on LinkedIn. That's very professional for the most part. But especially on Facebook, though, you know, you don't want to be, you know, a lot of profanity or, you know, talk about how the Patriots are all a bunch of liars and cheaters for Deflategate and you know, curse words and can't believe that, you know, stuff like that. You want to cultivate an image that's professional and competent. And so you know, you can have some good-natured humor and things like that. This doesn't preclude you from doing that. In fact, it makes you human. It's probably a good thing because we like humans. But you don't want to be crude.
You don't want to.
Question on social media, because I'm, you know, I'm an old guy and my familiarity is not what it ought to be. How would you rank the importance of, in order of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, anything else? I mean, is Facebook more important than all the others combined? Or is Twitter almost up there? What's your...
Facebook's the most important. We'll talk. We've got a section on social media later, but Facebook's the most important because that can galvanize volunteer support and donor support in a way that the other platforms can't necessarily do. That's not to say though that you shouldn't be doing the other two. In fact, you should be doing all of them. But we'll talk more about some best practices with those a little bit later. So anyways, so that was establishing your early credibility and credentials. Early fundraising. So Emily's List, who knows what that stands for?
Early money.
is
Early money.
yeast.
Like yeast.
It makes the dough rise, or raises the dough.
Yeah.
So Emily's List, early money is like yeast. The more money that you earn in the beginning of your campaign, the more viable people will see your campaign, and the more likely they're going to donate to your campaign later on. Early money is very, very important. Early endorsements, very, very important, because that all shows that you are a person who is a serious candidate.
Perception is reality.
Yep.
How many people are going to give to a campaign that they think is going to lose?
Nobody.
Some of us will, because we are masochists. But yeah. Go Bernie. Go Bernie. but we know that most people will not give to a fight that they see as a losing one. So we want to establish early that credibility.
Well, how early is early?
The earlier the better. I generally recommend, if you can raise a large percent of your entire campaign's budget with your first report, that's huge. And I throw 20% on here. You know, if you have a campaign budget of $50,000 and you're able to raise $10,000 in your very first report that you file, that's going to get some attention. That's going to show you are a serious candidate. And so the more that you can do early on, the better. The earlier, the better.
What if, some people are endorsing a person that just gets on the ballot within 1 second before everybody's even on the ballot? So how do you, they're already putting their names up, they're already doing it all before they even
So
know everybody's on there?
You need to be working far in advance, and if you're planning a 2016 run now, it's probably too late.
Like Patrick Murphy's been out there, I mean, he's
Oh,
running
yeah,
for,
Patrick
he's
Murphy,
gone
yeah.
to every single he's working hard,
And he's been doing that for years.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
Because he
absolutely.
knows,
He knew
he's
what
known
he
for a
wanted.
long time that he's wanted to run for that US Senate
Yeah.
seat.
And he's gonna ride that swing.
Yeah. And so that's how you lock up those early endorsements. Yeah. It's not unheard of for someone to change an endorsement to another person later in the campaign. It's very unlikely for that to happen,
Or
but
you
it
can
is
go
something.
where it's like say, oh, well, this person wasn't in here at the time and.
Or you can at least
Yeah.
get them to say that they don't endorse.
Or
Yeah. So, so here's a project for you, not to do right now, but this is something that every single candidate who's running for office should be able to do. Make your list. Your list is a list of at least 100 people, businesses, organizations that would make a contribution to your campaign. You need to write them all down, write down their names, identify a dollar amount that you think you'd be able to ask them for, that they'd be able to give. And if you don't know what that dollar amount should be, you look at their contribution past history. We'll talk about that later, looking through campaign finance reports. You identify the best means to make that ask. If you know that person really well and you want to ask them in person, go ahead and do that. If you know that they respond well to handwritten letters, write them a letter and send it in the mail. Think about what the best means to meet that person and make the ask would be. And then you want to try to raise as much money of this as possible when you are just beginning your campaign. Every group should have a list of at least 100 people. If you don't, you're probably not going to raise the funds that you need to win. It's really that simple.
And it's, in talking about the 20%, it's not uncommon to see a candidate that will want to have a good showing on first report. If they really believe I can raise the money, they'll go get a home equity line of credit,
Yep.
whatever, lend themselves $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is, believing that I will be able to pay myself back,
Yeah.
because you can,
Could I?
to show that.
Yeah. And you are able to give your own campaign as much money as you
Yeah,
want.
you can think your own.
You're like your own PAC.
Yeah.
Except you might not have the money that PAC has.
If it's not your own and someone wants to back you and says, I'm going to give you $10,000 to, you can't do that.
Unless, they wouldn't be able to
Like, I have a
directly,
friend that said, I'll give you $10,000.
they wouldn't be able to directly
so-
contribute to your campaign
No, they
in that level. There
Put it
are
in a
maximum
pack.
But what
contribution
I'm
limits.
saying, that, I mean, like,
Yeah.
what if he
There's other-
lends it to me?
Can't do that either. Yeah.
Well, that's,
Oh, I'm
that's,
sorry, I
that's
didn't quite hear that, but my thought was, can somebody give you a personal gift, a gift tax on it?
I mean, that's where you get really, really fuzzy with the law, and I wouldn't go down that route. You'd rather be more cautious than anything, because otherwise then that winds up being on the front page of your local newspaper, and, crime, conspiracy.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
It's not worth it.
conspiracy,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so if somebody did want to loan or give the candidate $10,000, would the solution to that be just establishing that PAC?
If you want that money and you see that it's going to be helpful for you, establish a PAC and have them put it in there. You can do that, and then have some sort of letter accompany that saying that this person really believes in you, and like an endorsement letter basically, and it shows them that they've invested $10,000 in this organization, this PAC that's going to support the causes that you also care about, those kinds of things. That can be effective.
But his point is, ideally, you want it on the campaign report,
Right.
because legally, which $10,000 given to you by somebody else is not,
Right.
because that's what creates the perception of the energy behind your campain.
Unless you want
Because
them to
that's what everybody's
underestimate
gonna look
you.
at.
Well, unless you want the other side to underestimate you, and there's like 100,000 sitting in the pack, and they see your campaign, you don't have much. I don't know, but I like your.
There might be some circumstances where you want people to underestimate you,
Then they would-
but in general, you'd rather them see you as a very
Yeah.
strong, viable candidate who's going to be the one who other people want to flock to.
And it keeps other people out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
So that's another huge advantage of early fundraising. If you don't want that crowded primary where you have to spend your resources in August to fend off other Democrats, then early fundraising can kind of box you out. Like Charles Barkley, you know, getting you're the one who's going to get the ball.
Judge Dickon was running, she put in 200,000 immediately, she donated herself 200,000, nobody, I think there was like one good person, like, and then they started switching around,
Yeah,
like,
people were like,
yeah. She put, yeah, she put that in. Like,
It's
nobody
a-
was going in there. Like,
No one
was
wants
going
to
in
go
there.
against you if they see that you're going to liquidate all of your assets and, you know, go scorched earth. All right. So, looking at fundraising, who are you going to ask? Everybody. We've been talking about the importance of relationships. The closer your relationship with someone, the more likely they are to make a contribution or support you. The middle, the people you have the strongest relationships with are yourself, I hope so, and your family. And then next out from there is friends, then allies. Then you have people who just want access to the power that you're going to have. And then you have the people who are the enemy of my enemy is my friend mentality. So you have less, you get a lower return on your investment the further out you go from the middle of the circle. But it's just to give you an idea about the kind of people who you could approach to receive contributions. The key though is that relationships are very important. And if you have a very strong relationship with someone who is looking for access, they're probably going to give you funding. If you have a good relationship with someone who has that enemy of my enemy mentality, they'll probably give you a contribution too.
And look at your opponent's campaign report and be getting in touch with every business and every organization that is given to them, because more often than not, they'll give to both sides.
Yeah, they want to hedge their bets. So you want to be prepared to receive contributions and endorsements. So this is where you're still building your campaign, your infrastructure, your credibility and everything. You want to make sure that you're ready to take all this funding in, that all that infrastructure is all ready to go. So whenever you're sending out communications to people, have different ways for them to contribute to you. Include your mailing address for checks. Include your online website if you want to encourage online contributions. You want to make sure they have no excuse not to give, and you want to reduce all those excuses as much as possible. Create an endorsement letter template. Oftentimes when an organization endorses you and they approach you about that, they're going to say, can you write the letter for us and we'll sign it? That happens so often. You want to have a template ready for them to be able to, that you can send over to them that they can sign off on. So have that ready to go. Because the sooner that they ask you for it and you're able to turn it back around to them, the less of a chance they are to change their minds. You want to have all this stuff ready to go, rapid response.
Quick question, democracy.com, the website, are you, do you think that's a good website for candidates to use?
We'll talk more about campaign websites in a bit. I've got a couple of slides on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Let's see. By writing the endorsement letters for them sometimes too, or at least having templates ready. Do you want to share what you're lifting up right there?
This is what somebody did for me as a template since I wasn't here on introductions. I'm running for Congress against Mario Diaz-Balart. And somebody did this as a template for me, so whenever I want an endorsement, I just give it to them, ask for their name, their title, their signature, their email, and their phone number. And that's it. And all it is asking permission to use their name for your campaign. And then, of course, the district I'm running and the year, so on and so forth.
So this is really great if you want to have a list on your website of all the people who support you, that laundry list that we see many times used. That's really great. I highly encourage that. Sometimes if an issue-based organization like the Sierra Club wants to endorse you, they want this template already done. Not just name and organization, but also paragraphs, like a letter to the editor version, like we are supporting Alina because we see that she's a champion for the environment. She has a track record of doing X, Y, and Z, and so we're supporting her candidacy by endorsing her and writing her a check for $1,000. By having this template ready, you're able to make sure they stick with your campaign's messaging points too. That they're not going off message and derailing your campaign's message in some ways, that they're trying to stick with what you're trying to say too.